Jordan Schultz writes for Yahoo Sports, their NBA writer, and he's the co-host of a new Hoops podcast with CJ McCollum. It's called Pull Up, and we got the draft coming up. We got Kawhi Leonard, and Jordan Schultz joins us now. Let me start with Kawhi. Everybody wants to rush to judgment Kawhi Leonard ends up with the Lakers. How does he end up with the Lakers?
Morning, Dan. I think for Kawhi, he's from there, and the biggest deal for LA, you got to get. You have to understand that they have great young prospects, and San Antonio has to understand that they're not going to get 100 cents on the dollar if they trade Kawhi. It's just not how NBA trades work. Just look at Kyrie Irving with Cleveland and Boston. So the Lakers, they understand that cap space is essentially, it's hardly a guarantee to sign a marquee player. So they need to go out and try to get him. And if that's trading Lonzo Ball or Kyle Kuzma, so be it. Because the opportunity to get Kawhi in a trade, to team him potentially with LeBron, and then all of a sudden you're talking about Brandon Ingram if he's there, or maybe they trade Brandon Ingram and they keep Kyle Kuzma, but that's a core that you can really start to build around. So to me, the Lakers need to be aggressive in going out and get him, Dan, because they don't know if he'll come in free agency in a year.
Yeah, but why would I trade him to the Lakers if I'm the Spurs? Why would I have him in the Western Conference?
Well, that's the other argument, because then there's Boston. Boston called San Antonio in February, and if Boston went out and got Kawhi Leonard, let's say they give up Jaylen Brown in that pick from Sacramento, is that enough? Because if you're San Antonio, yes, you don't want to trade him in the same conference, but you also want to get back as much as possible, because we know Boston's not giving up Jason Tatum. Maybe they could give up Kyrie and Brown, but there's no way that they're going to give up Tatum. And then there's Philadelphia, but they're not going to get back enough from Philly because Fultz is too big of a question mark. Simmons and Embiid aren't going anywhere. And to me, the Lakers probably can give them the most on their return. So that's why the Lakers would make sense.
But why? How long would Popovich last with LeVar and Lonzo Ball? Come on.
Oh, well, maybe it's not Lonzo. Maybe it's Kuzma and Ingram. Is that too much to give up? I don't know the answer to that.
It's probably,
you're right. I mean,
yeah, it's probably too much, but it could probably get the deal done. And if I knew that I was going to get LeBron and I was going to get Paul George, then I'd gladly give up those two guys.
Yeah. And Popovich has said there have been reports that he's wanted to retire, that he stayed on because he's made promises to their veterans like Ginobili and Parker. I totally agree with you. You bring Lonzo and LeVar, you bring that circus to town, there's no way that thing works.
No.
But I get it. I get it, what you're saying about not trading him in the West. Is also it's the balance of that and saying we want to extract as much value as possible.
All right, the draft coming up, the biggest surprise is going to be which team or which player?
I think, long term, like who's going to be a great player or who's going to go up early in the draft?
Whatever direction you want to go.
Well, I think Michael Porter is really fascinating because had he not gotten hurt at Missouri, he could have been the number one pick. And it's been told to me he is the best offensive prospect in this class. So he could go as high as 2 now to Sacramento. And earlier in the year we thought maybe he would go 8, 9, somewhere along those lines. But I think the best player in this class is Luka Doncic from Slovenia. And if I had the number one pick and I was Phoenix, I would take him over Aiden. He's the most accomplished European teenager we've ever seen. And that includes guys like Dirk and Porzingis and Petrovic. He's that special, Dan. He's only 19. People say he's not this great athlete. I don't care. Pick and roll, 6'8", can handle the ball, can shoot it. To me, he's your franchise cornerstone. So I would take him number one.
The next Donovan Mitchell. So who's the Donovan Mitchell of this year's draft?
Well, there's a few guys in that mix. Lonnie Walker from Miami, a freshman that has really he's seen this meteoric rise because he's a great athlete. But I really love Dante DiVincenzo, the big ragu. Remember him, Dan? I mean, this guy was coming off the bench, 6-man. And now all of a sudden, I've talked to so many people around the league that are head and shoulders loving this guy. And the reason is, as one coach told me, he's fearless, he's going to shock the draft, and he's got NBA balls. And what he meant by that was he will attack. And I thought that was such a great quote. He said he's got NBA cojones, he's got NBA balls. He will attack. He'll be a great rebounder. So I'm not sure he goes in the top 10, but in those middle teens, to me, he could be that guy.
We got Trey Young in studio tomorrow. What do you think of Trey Young?
He's the first player ever to lead the country in assists and points. To me, the comparison to Steph Curry is unfair because Steph Curry is a transcendent, once-in-a-generation player. But Trey Young, to me, is a really special player that will benefit then from the openness of the NBA game, the pick and roll, the fact that he can get you a bucket at the end of a shot clock, and he's got a really good floater game. He didn't shoot the ball really well in the paint. He kind of hovered around 40% all year, but he's got great touch, and I think the speed game of the NBA will really behoove him.
Talking to Jordan Schultz from Yahoo Sports. His podcast that he co-hosts with the Blazers guard CJ McCollum is called Pull Up, joining us on the Dan Patrick Show. Where's Grayson Allen from Duke going?
So, you know what what's fascinating about him is it's not the same, but that same question mark to a degree of Baker Mayfield, that has entered the stratosphere of Grayson Allen. Is he mature? Can you build around him? Now, he's not going to be a number one pick. He's not going to be a lottery pick. But people I spoke with around the league have been really impressed with him in interview settings, which matters for a guy that has, at least publicly, has character concerns. So I think he'll go late in the first, and I think he'll be a pretty good NBA player because he might not be a starter, but he's a legitimate NBA guard in the sense that he's really explosive. He can shoot it, although he didn't shoot it great last year, just 37%. Can get out on the open floor. And I think he'll be a functional NBA player with the potential to become a starter, which is great value, obviously, late in the first.
Boogie Cousins' future in New Orleans is what?
I don't think he's a Pelican long term. And the reason I say that, before he got hurt, there was no question they were going to re-sign him to a 5-year max. Then he gets hurt. Davis plays like an MVP. They sweep Portland, and they even gave Golden State some fits. I mean, they got hammered, but they gave him some fits in a couple of games. And that's, to me, the reason why. And I think Cousins, there's two options for the Pelicans. They can let him walk, which I think would be foolish, or they can maybe give him a 2-year deal, almost like a prove-it deal, and see how he does. But I don't think there's any way at this point they can give him that long-term deal, given how well they play without him.
I'll leave you with this, Jordan. How do the Lakers afford LeBron, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George those salaries?
So right now they have enough money to clear up $70 million in cap, and what they can do is, for one, they're not going to be able to re-sign Julius Randle, which is a shame because he played well. But long term, that's the right move. So they bring in Kawhi in a trade. They get LeBron in a 1+1. And they sign Paul George, and that'll allow them the opportunity to do that. And obviously, they're going to have to go into the tax, but they have enough money to do that. And then that means long term, they're not going to be able to have a guy like Brandon Ingram because they're going to have to trade him, or a guy like Kyle Kuzma, they're going to have to trade him. But it does work, and that is obviously the goal for Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka.
But is LeBron not going to do a sign and trade?
Well, he can opt in with Cleveland and then negotiate a sign and trade. But as you said recently, I listened to you, I think it was last week, when you said if he does a sign and trade, then that affects the talent of the team he's going to.
Yeah.
And that's a negative.
Yeah, but that's what I don't understand. The Lakers don't have this many parts to be able to trade for Kawhi and trade for LeBron.
Well, he's a free agent, though. So they could just go out and sign LeBron to a 1+1.
Yeah, but if he wants to, but he's going to want max money. Everybody wants a max deal. It's like, when Melo wanted out of Denver, he's like, before you send me, can you sign me up for a max deal, then trade me? Nobody goes, hey, I'm just going to leave and go to another team. They all want their money, and then, it's a sign and trade. So that's what's curious. What do you give up for these guys?
Why then in that situation, then they might not be able to keep any of those guys, Kuzma, Ingram, Ball, and I think Ball they're not committed to at all long term. But I will say that LeBron early in his career, he took a pay cut. He wasn't even the highest paid player on his team. Then he made it clear, I do not want to take a pay cut. And to your point, I don't think he will take a pay cut. So if he opts in, and they sign and trade him, then all those young prospects are gone. But if the opportunity is to get Kawhi, Paul George, and LeBron, How could you not do that if you're Rob Pelinka?
Yeah, I'd give up everybody. I mean,
everybody.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jordan, I know you got a busy day. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you before the draft.
Thanks, TP. All right, buddy.
It's Jordan Schultz, Yahoo Sports NBA writer.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.